Tonight's deadline for domestic debt exchange program extended to February 7 as some institutions struggled to complete the administrative process after signing up to the agreement with the Finance Ministry. Ahead, we'll be joined in studio by policy analyst and executive director for the Movement for Responsible and Accountable Governance, Emmanuel Owusu. Also, National Insurance Commission to suspend the minimum capital requirement and capital adequacy ratio of insurance companies for 2 years to mitigate the impact of the debt exchange program on the firms. Plus, Alliance of Civil Society Organizations working in the extractive industry raises serious concerns over transparency issues in the Gold for Oil program. We'll hear from its chairman, Dr. Steve Manteo.
There are serious corruption risks associated with the Gold for Oil program, and it is important that government averted this corruption risk through open disclosures and accountability under this program.
Thanks for staying with us. Now, government has extended the deadline for the domestic debt exchange program to February 7, 2023. The Finance Ministry, in a press release on Tuesday, added that a new settlement date of Tuesday, February 14, 2023, will be confirmed via the new exchange memorandum. Now, the original deadline for the program expired at 4 p.m. today, January 31. Now, let's take a look at the press release from the Finance Ministry now, and it reads, the government of Ghana has made significant progress with all stakeholders, including financial sector industry associations and representative groups of individual bondholders with respect to their participation in the domestic debt exchange program. The government hereby announces the following updates. Now, that based on the agreements reached with the Ghana Association of Banks, Ghana Insurance Association, and the Ghana Securities Industry Association, the new terms of the exchange have been accepted. A revised and final exchange memorandum will be released by Thursday, 2nd February 2023. Now, we move on straight to the point 6, where it says that these developments have necessitated the final extension of the deadline from 31st January 2023 to Tuesday 7th February 2023, and a new settlement date of Tuesday 14th February 2023 that will be confirmed via the new exchange memorandum. It goes ahead to say that the government appreciates the cordial engagement with the various stakeholders since the beginning of the domestic debt exchange program that have made such remarkable progress possible. All bondholders are hereby encouraged to commence all administrative processes towards their participation in the exchange in line with the agreements reached. And that's where it ends and has been signed by the government of Ghana. Now, I'll be joined in studio by policy analyst and executive director of the Movement for Responsible and Accountable Governance, Emmanuel Owusu. He earlier authored an article titled "How Debt Exchange Will Impact Your Pockets," which made a good read on myjoyonline.com. He joins me for his perspective on the extension of the deadline for the debt exchange program, as well as a new article on the Ghana Financial Stability Fund. Now, we go back to him later, but let's go away from that. And the National Insurance Commission has given an indication to place a moratorium on the minimum capital requirements and capital adequacy ratio of insurance firms for 2 years. This is to mitigate the impact of the debt exchange program on the firms. Here's more in the following report.
The move indicates that the minimum capital requirement and the capital adequacy ratio of the insurance firms will not be enforced, but regulated entities will be required to operate in such a way so as to be able to pay claims and operating expenses. The current minimum capital requirement of life and non-life insurance companies stands at 50 million Ghana cedis, whilst the capital adequacy ratio is 14.2%. In a letter to the insurance firms on draft regulatory forbearance, the NIC said the moratorium will be for 2 years, after which the situation will be reviewed and appropriate decision made. It added that a set of guidelines will be developed and issued to guide the operation of regulated entities during the moratorium period. The NIC also announced other measures such as revisions to claim payment timelines, the postponement of the implementation of International Financial Report Standard 17, among others.
Now, the governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, has assured of robust measures to help minimize the impact of the debt exchange program on commercial banks. At a press on Monday, the governor noted that the regulator has also come out with a different financial deal to support the commercial banks.
So there are a lot of things that the Bank of Ghana has agreed to do to help the banks deal with the impact of the domestic debt exchange on capital and liquidity. This is a financial sector stabilization fund to be supported by donor partners, already capitalized at $1 billion. Already we have the World Bank pledging to support it with $250 million. Right. Bank of Ghana, we have our own liquidity arrangements already for the banks, and therefore we do not plan to be part of this financial sector stabilization fund, which is mainly financed by the external development partners.
Well, I'm joined in studio by policy analyst and executive director of the Movement for Responsible and Accountable Governance, Emmanuel Owusu, on the extension of the deadline for the domestic debt exchange program to February 7, 2023. Emmanuel, thank you so much for your time. Let's first take your initial thoughts on the extension.
I think it's a welcome news because there are still outstanding issues to deal with. There are still the individual bondholders who are not so clear on their way forward. There are the mutual funds clients who are also not too sure of what to expect. Even though there's been some engagements with the industry players, the Ghana Bankers Association and the NIC and a host of other groups, but fine details have not really come out. So I think the extension is a welcome news. We want to commend the government for considering that. And I would also want to encourage them to engage further because the whole debt exchange program conversation is something that is going to really impact the financial sector. So I don't think we should rush through it. We should take our time and do it well and get it right.
Sure, but before today, you mentioned for the program to be halted for the lack of transparency. Do you still stand by your words?
Well, I think I still stand by it because, of course, there are still very outstanding key issues that must be dealt with, and we are likely to have an effect on the markets. I mean, most banks are likely to to go down. Their assets are likely to be locked up and all that. So we don't want to have a situation whereby we have a financial crisis in the country. So I think the government should look at probably halting it and probably looking at other ways of raising income or other ways of managing the economy. For now, I think the debt exchange is not what the Republic of Ghana needs, honestly.
If you say other ways, which other ways are you talking about?
Well,
which
of
other
course,
ways you government
you
can
look
adopt?
at the government cost envelope. I mean, your cost envelope is so high. You may want to look at how you can, deal with yourself, of course, before you come to us, for us to also make some concessionary arrangements. But the government have not really shown much commitment. If you look at the 2023 budget, with a cost envelope of 143 billion, that's so high. And the government still wants to hold on to it. So I would think that if the government expects us as the citizenry to come along with them, they may also want to look at their cost envelope.
Let's talk about the confidence in the sector now. I mean, we have now stakeholders who have signed on to the debt exchange program. Do you think that there's confidence, some level of confidence in the sector now?
Well, it's just about 10% of the level of confidence that we see now. It can get better. We think the engagement so far has been good. The initial agreements that have been chalked, or the initial success that have been chalked, as actually attributed to that. So I think the level of confidence is good to start with. It can get better. I look forward to a confidence level of about 35%. For now, I'll peg it at a 10%.
But what's your personal take on the individual bondholders? What do you think will become of them?
Anytime I talk about the individual bondholders, I feel very sorry for them, because you look at the volume of investment that these individual bondholders have locked in Government of Ghana securities. I think their livelihood, if care is not taken, is going to be worsened. They are going to get a situation whereby nobody would want to put their money into the Government of Ghana securities. And when that happens, the Republic suffers, because you see, government borrows so much from the domestic market. So if you look, and most of these individual holders contribute to that, contribute to government, source of income. So if government is not listening to them, I would suggest that they listen to them more and further, and probably give in to some of their demands. They should. The finance minister, if he's watching tonight's show, they should probably give in to the bondholders' request.
And we wait and see what's going to happen in the coming days. But let's come back to your article on Stability Fund. What are the proposals you're making to operationalize financial stability? Well,
interesting proposals. I mean, when the issue of the Stability Fund came, I have been thinking, how is government going to sustain it? What are who are likely to benefit from it, the source of funding? So let's look at the source of funding. I am proposing a 10% cut on government expenditure. And I'll give you the numbers. In the 2023 budget, government is expecting to spend 143 billion. If you do a 10% of that, you're going to get 4.49 billion. I'm further proposing that government should look at the VAT increment. In the 2023 budget, government says that it's going to increase from 12.5% to 15%. I'm saying that we should lock 1% of that increment as a seed fund into the Stability Fund. Because you see, VAT, domestic VAT, government is expecting to collect about 44.9 billion. 1% of that gives you 4.9. It gives you a total of 19.2 billion. Government is saying that is looking at 15 billion for the Stability Fund. If you are able to do that, you take care of the Stability Fund. So that cushions the Stability Fund. We are very sure of some monies coming into the Stability Fund. Another thing I suggested, which I think is already been in motion, is a financial moratorium. The regulators should probably engage their players. They should look at their capital adequacy ratio, probably look at revising it for them, look at their liquidity ratio, and anything and any other rules and regulations that is likely to impact the liquidity of the banks. Because if they don't do that, the banks will look at other ways of managing the firm. And obviously, you look at your models, your cost envelope again. What can you let go? And when that happens, staff would are likely to suffer. But some banks may likely lay off others. More to proposals. And I'm saying that government should look at a financial insurance package. Because you see, when you get staff laid off, what's going to happen to them? So let's have an insurance package in the fund, a portion of it dedicated to that, to be able to deal with these individuals who are likely to, through this debt exchange program, are likely to suffer. So what I'm saying is that institutions that is likely to participate in a debt exchange program, probably their staff may also be affected. We should look at taking care of them. You see, because at the end of the day, what's the point of setting up a stability fund when it cannot stabilize our individual lives? So I'm looking at the individual, the end goal. So these proposals, I believe that if government looks at it, we'll be able to sustain the stability fund. So Christ come.
We'll leave it here, Emmanuel. Thank you so much. Emmanuel Owusi is policy analyst and executive director of the Movement for Responsible and Accountable Governance, as well as author of an article. Now, still to come here on the show, Alliance of Civil Society Organizations working in the extractive industry raises serious concerns over transparency issues in the Gold for Oil program. We'll hear from its chairman, Dr. Steve Manteo.
There are serious corruption risks associated with the Gold for Oil program, and it is important that government averted this corruption risk through open disclosures and accountability under this program.
Thanks for staying with us here on the show. We take a look at some other stories now. In the Alliance of CSOs working on extractives, anti-corruption and good governance is raising strong reservations about the Gold for Oil program, warning of serious corruption risk if transparency and accountability of the entire transaction chain is not enhanced. Addressing the media, chairman of the coalition, Dr. Steve Manteo, called on Parliament to examine the transaction and ensure that aspects that fall within the realms of international transactions between the states and third parties are brought to the House for approval in accordance with the laws. Here's more in the following report.
Working on extractives, anti-corruption and good governance at an engagement with the media questioned the transparency of government's Gold for Oil policy. Some major risks identified by the group in relation to the deal include the absence of buyer criteria pricing policy, lack of clarity on cost of transaction, amongst others. The group therefore called on Parliament to examine the transaction and ensure aspects that fall under the international transactions are brought before the House for approval. Dr. Steve Manteo is chairman of the coalition.
We haven't had enough information on the government's Gold for Oil program. Apart from headline statements being made either by way of public pronouncements or directives, we don't have a comprehensive policy document that we can interrogate and make input into. What we've done so far is to pull together all the information that are currently public, and we have analyzed them and come to the conclusion that there are serious corruption risks associated with the Gold for Oil program, and it is important that government averted this corruption risk through open disclosures and accountability under this program.
Dr. Steve Mantell also raised key concerns over the acquisition of the controversial Jubilee Oil Holdings Limited by GNPC.
The 7%, it became available to the Republic of Ghana. Our commercial vehicle for acquiring that 7% was GNPC. GNPC acquires the 7%, it becomes part of our stake in the block. The Petroleum Revenue Management Act says that all revenues, whether they were earned directly or indirectly, directly in the sense that if they were earned directly from GNPC stake or indirectly by a subsidiary, should be paid into the Petroleum Holding Fund. Then if any of the entities have a claim to make, they will make that claim and it will be paid from the Petroleum Holding Fund. So all our equity holding in the block are treated the same way. We have what we call level A and level B. Level A is to deal with equity matters. So you ask yourself, what happened and why would GNPC take money, acquire 7%, not for itself but for the state, and keep the proceeds from that stake in an account outside the designated place where it should go, which is the Petroleum Holding Fund?
Meanwhile, the coalition is asking government to review its investment strategy as the current one being deployed is not delivering the desired results.
Meanwhile, the Bank of Ghana is insisting that the Gold for Oil program will help reduce the pressure on the country's foreign exchange reserves. It has also rejected calls for its cancellation. Head of Financial Markets, Stephen Opata, has been speaking to journalists in Accra.
Strategy for gold is gold for reserves and gold for oil. Gold for oil is coming from PMMC. Gold for reserves will come from the other mines and the aggregator programs. So that answers your questions. It's not just it's gold for oil and gold for reserves. So this is very transformational, and I urge all of you to give a positive narrative about it. Why should it be suspended? This is a good program. We've never done this. I've told you already that if this goes very well, we have a very sustainable way of buying oil products for the country. Not only that, but the pressure on our reserves will stop. We're able to build on our reserves. Who should stop this program? It's a very good program. We are talking about oil and gold. Yeah. Gold has its own peculiarities as far as correlations are concerned. So there can even be some diversification benefits. I will urge you to look at how oil behaves and how gold behaves. They are two commodities, but they behave differently. Gold, in times of crisis or times of shocks, goes up. Yes. At that time, you don't expect oil to go up. So I think that in terms of a correlation mix, it's not too bad. But that is not what we are even looking at. What we are looking at here is that we are using, Ghana is very rich in gold. The largest producer of gold, a developing country producer of gold, the largest. In 2021, we produced about 130 tons. That's a lot. So we have a lot of gold to back this program. This program is being driven by Dory gold, unrefined gold, right? So it's quite different from the gold for reserves, which is monetary gold that has to be refined into certain characteristics. This program is quite faster than that.
Now, the Ghana Revenue Authority will begin fresh prosecution of managers of some shopping malls flouting the electronic value-added tax laws. According to the authority, its investigations have revealed that some businesses are issuing tax invoices without using the electronic system. This has led to the arrest of managers of ShopRite, China Mall, among others, who are expected to face the law. Accra Area Enforcement Manager at the GRA, Joseph Annan, has been speaking with Joy Business.
The China Mall, they were not issuing the EVAT invoice. Then Palace Mall, they are also issuing receipts with duplicate signature of the Commissioner General. And then we have Snyder Shopping Center, they are also issuing non-EVAT invoice. And then we have Fresh First Limited, that's Second Cap. They are also not issuing EVAT invoice. All these places are centered at Spintex. What we have done is to zone the taxpayers into areas. So today we decided to focus on Spintex. Tomorrow we'll be moving to another area until we are done with. We'll continue from area to area to reduce time and also save cost. So today we visited these places. And what we have done is to arrest managers of these companies. And then we have brought them to our customs head office. We are going to take their statement, and then the CID will continue with their investigation, and then we'll see what happens next.
So after taking their statements, like you say, the CID is going to do investigation. Whilst doing the investigation, what will be happening to them?
What will happen is that definitely they have been arrested, so somebody will have to bail them. But beyond that, we are looking forward to prosecution, because it looks like they are not taking us serious, because we have just started a new process and already look at what is happening. Probably they want us to bar our teeth at them before they do the right thing, and that we shall surely do. We are looking forward to seeing some of them in court.
And that's how we end the show tonight. Thank you so much for your company. For more news, you can log on to myjoyonline.com/business. My name is Beverly Broohm. Have a good evening.